One thing in life is certain: we're all going to make mistakes. Constantly. And while they have a tendency to vary in their size and cost, hopefully none of your recent ones have been like some of the items on today's list. In that case, you might find yourself several $1 million worse off. From stock market horror to Pepsi resurrecting family members. You're watching Top Trending, and today we're counting down our picks for the most expensive mistakes ever made. Our number one spot goes to an incident that happened in the Japanese stock market 13 years ago. When it comes to trading stock, the advice you'll hear repeated over and over again in media is buy low, sell high. In the case of Mizuho Industries, this strategy didn't exactly go according to plan. 4 years before the merger with Shinko Securities that would see the company into its current state, Mizuho Securities was a large Japanese investment banking and securities firm and experienced a severe loss of money through potentially one of the most seemingly inconsequential mistakes on this list. In December 2005, Mizuho intended to sell one share of a job recruiting firm called J-Com Co., a new addition to its economic portfolio, for 610,000 yen, roughly equivalent to $5,500. Unfortunately, the trader accidentally sold 610,000 shares at 1 yen, an amount worth less than 1 cent. Even though the amount of shares involved in this transaction was 41 times the number of J-Com's outstanding shares, the Tokyo Stock Exchange processed the order anyway. This one simple but monumental transaction caused Mizuho to lose $225 million in just 1 day. The company soon after said that another trader attempted to cancel the order multiple times, to the response that the Tokyo Stock Exchange doesn't cancel transactions. This event was so notable that the Japanese Prime Minister at the time, Junichiro Koizumi, ended up issuing a statement to reporters considering safety measures to prevent further confusion. If there's a takeaway to be had from this, it's to proofread everything, especially if you're in a situation where you can easily lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And especially proofread commas. At number 2, we have NASA, and an error they made almost 2 decades ago. The metric and imperial systems are a serious point of contention. You wouldn't think that scales for measuring temperatures would be such a risky thing to talk about, but the recent heat waves around the globe have brought the debate to the forefront of our conversation topics once again. We can't help but feel like trying to involve NASA in this discussion wouldn't end well, as this debate cost them around $125 million in 1999. The Mars Climate Orbiter probe had its origins in 1993, when NASA began the Mars Surveyor program, with the intent of exploring Mars in greater detail than the current Viking probes. In missions like this, reaction wheels on spacecraft like the Mars Climate Orbiter help constantly monitor the probe's angular momentum. I'm sure you can see the problem when you're dealing with a distance of 140 million miles, or 225 million kilometers, just a miscommunication between NASA and the engineers at Lockheed Martin. The former using metric and the latter using imperial caused the probe to be lost in space, as navigational information couldn't be transferred between the Mars Climate Orbiter and the team at NASA. As many metric fans have pointed out before, despite the metric system being used by the majority of countries around the globe and also making weight and length conversions significantly easier, Americans still haven't changed to the system. This hasn't always been the case. They did try to at one point. The Metric Conversion Act of 1975 was intended to help foster closer understanding between scientific communities with use also in trading, but the law made the switch to the metric system voluntary. To this day, only one metric road sign exists in the US, on the interstate connecting Mexico to Arizona. Hopefully they give it another shot soon. I've been spending a lot of time converting temperatures to be able to understand tweets recently. You've probably heard of Bitcoin. If you haven't, try mentioning it on social media, and watch accounts with names like Crypto Joe appear in your notifications page to tell you what it is. In fact, we'll give you a quick rundown now, though there are many different videos on YouTube explaining the full ins and outs. Bitcoin is a decentralized digital currency, created with the intention of working without a central bank or administrative authority. Bitcoins are transferred between users and stored on a public ledger called a blockchain, and are created through a process known as mining. Our number 3 slot goes to a blunder made surrounding Bitcoin back in 2009. The ledger wasn't launched until the 3rd of January 2009, a time when each Bitcoin was worth significantly less than it is now. James Howells, a man from Newport in the United Kingdom, participated in mining back when the currency first appeared, and ended up collecting 7,500 Bitcoins. He didn't think anything of it at the time, and his hard drive sat in his drawer for a few years before he ended up throwing it out. In 2013, the value of Bitcoin reached $1,000 for the first time. In an interview with BBC Radio Wales, James Howells mentioned going back to the landfill site in South Wales where his hard drive was taken, and told the station how the manager of the site told him he had no chance, the site being the size of a football field and his hard drive potentially being buried up to 5 feet deep. 4 years after this interview, the value of a Bitcoin reached $19,783, which meant that James' investment would have earned him $148,372,500 if he hadn't thrown out his old hard drive. Despite concerns being raised against the cryptocurrency, especially in the way of its amount of energy consumption, missing out on a deal like this would be heartbreaking to any of us. Our number 4 position goes to customer Michael T. Donnelly. There are two sides to every story, and in this story, one side lost $7 million, ironically after having a mistake fixed for him in store. Michael Donnelly was a grocery store checkout clerk in 2016 when he accidentally generated a Cash for Life ticket after being asked for a Powerball ticket by one of his customers. The customer declined the accidental ticket, and Michael bought it back off the customer to correct the mistake. The customer really should have kept the ticket though, as it contained all 6 numbers needed to win the prize of $7 million. According to Michael, he didn't even realize he'd won until a customer said he heard on the news that the winning Cash for Life ticket had been sold at Michael's store. What are the chances? Well, the chances are 1 in 21.8 million. Number 5. Two Canadian telecommunications companies, Bell Alliant and Rogers Communications, found themselves on either side of a legal battle in 2006 for $1 million Canadian over a misplaced comma, leaving a sentence vague and open to interpretation. Bell Alliant thought that the comma in for successive 5-year terms unless and until terminated by 1 year prior notice in writing by either party, in a deal formed between the two rivals, meant either party could cancel with 1 year's notice, whilst their competitor believed it meant the contract would last for 5 years but could be cancelled afterwards. In the end, Rogers won the case. But the moral of these two stories is to not overuse commas in case it ends up costing you a lot of money. You might have heard of the blunder in our number 6 spot, which ended up costing the US government what would amount to $40 million if the inflation rate was adjusted for. This one really makes you consider the importance of punctuation, as the addition of one little punctuation mark changed the meaning of a bill radically. In 1872, a rogue comma in the US Tariff Act caused the meaning of a sentence to be dramatically changed. The section of the act mentioned that tropical fruit plants would be exempt from tariffs, but a comma was used in place of a hyphen. The sentence reads as follows after the error: fruit, plants tropical and semi-tropical for the propagation or cultivation. This wording opened the door for orange and lemon importers to use the act to their advantage. All tropical and semi-tropical fruit was now exempt from charge, which led to the US government missing out on $2 million in the 19th century, a number higher than you might otherwise think when adjusted for inflation. It took 2 years for the act to be amended to close the accidental loophole. You might not have thought that commas could so radically change the meaning of a sentence, but this isn't the only time an error involving a comma has taken place, though the damages for our next item were smaller. Our number 7 position is an error made by a car dealership in New Mexico. In 2007, a Roswell business used a scratch card competition as promotional material, mailing out 50,000 of them to local residents. Though there was only supposed to be one winner, the company behind manufacturing the cards for the competition accidentally put the winning combination inside every ticket. The total amount of money this error would cost the car company was $50 million. Though unsurprisingly, they weren't able nor willing to give the prize of $1,000 to every single cardholder. Instead, they offered a $5 Walmart voucher for each winning card. This doesn't sound like much in comparison until you consider that this still amounted to $250,000. Our number 8 spot goes to a mistake made by Alitalia Airlines. We've all had bad experiences when it comes to airplanes. Delays, cancellations, being sat in front of a kid who outright refuses to stop kicking the back of your chair. But some customers of Alitalia Airlines managed to bag a deal almost too good to be true. In 2008, Alitalia Airlines tried to mark their Toronto to Cyprus route as being worth $3,900 on their website. Their zero key must have been broken at the time, however, as the route was put on the website being priced at just $39. The mistaken price was listed on a flight comparison website, and as many as 2,000 tickets were sold at this price before Alitalia got the chance to change it again. The airline initially tried to cancel all tickets purchased for $39, but after backlash from customers who bought tickets at an incredibly low price, they agreed to honor the fares. 2,000 people managed to bag a flight to Cyprus, adding up to a $7,720,000 loss to the airline. Yikes. Number 9. PepsiCo spent $2.4 billion on marketing worldwide in 2017 alone. Yes, billion. Advertising is an expensive tool, though you can probably argue a lot of that is ineffective as told by our reactions whenever asked if Coke is okay at a restaurant. The suits must see something in it for the budget to be that high. Pepsi is one of the most popular soft drinks in the world, and in the 1960s they allegedly made a pretty big blunder that ended up costing them a lot of money, even with an advertising budget of that size. "Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation" was the slogan of the company in the mid-1960s, which saw quite the response from the target audience at the time, some considering the advertising underperforming until this time. The "Come Alive" section of this slogan really sparked this tale of localization gone wrong, as Pepsi is said to have lost significant sales in China as the campaign was translated into something akin to "Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the dead." Regardless of whether the story is actually true, it does join the list of horrible localizations from around the world that almost definitely did result in lost sales, like the Electrolux, a Swedish vacuum company marketing its itself as sucking in the United States, and even in China again, where finger-licking good was poorly translated as eat your fingers off. Our number 10 spot goes to a skyscraper built in London just a few years ago. If you've ever been to London, one of the first things you'll notice is the incredibly modern approach to architecture. Every building is shiny and made almost entirely out of windows. It looks beautiful from the perspective of a tourist, but can also definitely pose some problems if executed poorly, as this story shows. The Walkie Talkie, a 525-foot tall building in Fenchurch Street, cost $250 million to make, but had one fatal flaw. It reflected sunlight really well. According to the Mail, the concave design and mirrored glass caused the sun to shine powerful focused rays of light onto the street below. One motorist's car, left exposed for only an hour, received damage on the wing mirrors and panels with the smell of burning plastic. In October 2014, the building was fitted with panels to deflect sunshine and stop the building from melting cars. Who knew that a building could cause so much damage? In our number 11 spot, we have the sale of Alaska. Alexander II was the emperor of Russia from 1855 to 1881, but makes it on this list for an error he made while selling off parts of his land in the 19th century. Alexander decided to sell the territory of Alaska to the United States, as he was scared of the possibility of the colony falling into the hands of the British if the Civil War were to reemerge. Alexander II regarded the colony as a barren, ice-covered land, and so the loss wasn't felt all too strongly. The amount negotiated was for a measly $7.2 million during the time of the deal, but this would translate roughly into $200 million in current years. The short-term gain was felt from the loss of the territory, but Russia has cumulatively lost potentially billions of dollars worth of both land and natural resources since. Number 12. Weaponry is incredibly expensive, and is certainly even more expensive to make an error on, as the Spanish government found out with the submarine the Isaac Pearl in 2013. Named after the creator of the first electric submarine in 1888, a submarine like no other with the distinctive ability to sink. Well, all it could do was sink. Once in operation, the Pearl would refuse to resurface, which is a pretty large problem when the submarine you've created retails in the region of $2.5 billion, with a B. As we've already seen, poor planning can lead to some sloppy errors that might leave your tech wanting, and the planning from the initial creation point of the submarine threw the entire design incredibly off. To fix the faulty sub, the Spanish government requested a redesign. The excess weight of the submarine was accounted for with a larger hull. Regardless of the fix, $2.5 billion is risky money to be playing with. Hypothetically, if there were to be an error on an entire year's design of a certain coin in a currency, it would follow that the coins would have to be removed and changed to accommodate the error officially. Although currency itself might have a low price to manufacture, that price definitely does add up across tens of thousands and thousands of coins. This isn't just a hypothetical. Our number 13 spot goes to an event that happened a decade ago. In 2008, the Chilean Mint misspelled the name of the country Chile as Chai. Although certainly a nice name, the name of the country being incorrect is enough for the coin to be rendered invalid. The mistake wasn't rectified until 2009, and the country's name remained Chai on coins from 2008. Though the Chilean government didn't take the coins out of circulation, the result was a lot of money being wasted on a national currency which had the wrong country name on it. Sorry, Chile. A small miscalculation in measurements can end up costing you more than you bargained for. Our number 14 spot goes to the man-made disaster caused by Texaco in 1980. Lake Peigneur is a lake in Louisiana spanning over 1,100 acres of land. The lake itself was around 10 feet deep, fairly uneventful in most respects until the incident in question. In November 1980, an oil rig contracted by Texaco accidentally drilled into a salt mine beneath the lake, causing a leak in the base of the lake. Incredibly, the lake drained into the mine, resulting in a giant whirlpool which sucked in the drilling platform, 11 barges, and 65 acres of the surrounding terrain. It's astounding that no human lives were lost somewhere in the occurrence of these events, though unfortunately 3 dogs didn't make it out alive. Texaco ended up having to pay $44.8 million in damages, mainly to Diamond Crystal Salt Company. Finishing off today's list is an expensive typo made by the Yellow Pages in an ad placed by the now closed down Banner Travel Services. The Californian travel agency decided to place an ad in the classifieds of the Yellow Pages to promote their business, declaring the many exotic vacations they had on offer on every corner of the globe. Unfortunately for them, the pages misspelled exotic as erotic, giving some readers the wrong idea about the exact operations of the travel agency. We can probably assume that Banner Travel Agency ended up getting some attention for their ad, though definitely not the type of attention they were looking for. In response to the typo, the pages offered to refund the $250 the company paid to place their ad in the book, not to the satisfaction of Banner, who ended up suing the company for $10 million. And that's our list of the most expensive mistakes. Did you agree with our list? Disagree? Have any suggestions for things we missed over the course of the video? Let us know in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, share with friends, and subscribe to Top Trending for more regular countdown videos such as this one.